Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I'm Charlie. Today we are looking at 22-year-old Tonee Marie Turner's disappearance. Tonee has been missing for approximately 3.5 years. She was born on the 10th of June 1997. She grew up in the Northeast. She's from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. She's a very much loved member of her community and someone who, for those who know her well, find it difficult to believe would simply leave of her own accord. It's completely out of character for her to walk away from her family and friends. Those closest to her suspect that she was taken against her will. It's important to note that of the 50 states in the US, Pennsylvania ranks 10th highest in missing person cases, particularly involving African American and the LGBTQIA+ community. And this has therefore particularly raised concerns of a potential serial perpetrator or a human trafficking network. Something about Tonee is that she is an artist in the making. According to her family, she is a lover of art and creating. This has always been the case since she was very little. She's hugely talented at it. Everything from drawing to jewellery making to ceramics. She is self-taught. In 2019, she was enjoying the craft of pottery whilst also teaching ceramics to kids at Braddock Carnegie Library. So it was on the 30th of December 2019 when Tonee went missing. She was following her usual routine of dropping into her favourite cafe. And this is the Dobra Tea Room on Murray Avenue in the Squirrel Hill area. She didn't stop for long before getting on her usual public bus, which went in the direction of home. The bus driver of this route happened to be known to her because he was a neighbour of the Turners. His name's Vincent. He clocked her getting on, but also noticed that she didn't look particularly happy. He gently tried to lift her spirits and cheer her up, but also he didn't want to intrude too much. He reports that she got off at her usual stop in Hazelwood at approximately 6:20 p.m. Which is the area in which the Turners reside. It's not clear in which direction that Tonee headed once Vincent drove off. She could have potentially met up with friends. There were 2 sets of homes in close proximity that she could have gone to in the area, and they were easily reached on foot. But it's unknown if she did this or not. What one is led to believe is that she set off directly to Homestead Bridge because her possessions are later found there. This would have been a 30-minute walk minimally, possibly 45 minutes depending on her pace. The thing about this is that it's a very exposed route on foot. If she had done so, somebody would have inevitably noticed her on her path. But the last known person to see her was Vincent, the bus driver. I want to just point out that all places mentioned are very close together. So Squirrel Hill, where the tea room is, where Tonee was seen before catching the bus, goes one way down to Hazelwood, which is where the Turners live, and then in the opposite direction, well, that goes to Homestead. So if one was to drive to any of these areas, it's likely to take just a few minutes. It's all very close. So I'm making this point because it appears so clear that anyone with wheels could speedily deposit Tonee's belongings on the bridge. The sense I get is that this was more easily accomplished because more than one person was involved in her case, and which means more people know what really happened to Tonee, and more importantly, where she is. So, returning to the bridge, it's puzzling. As just mentioned, her possessions are found on a pedestrian walkway of the Homestead Grays Bridge. In her bag were her mobile cell phone, her keys, a water bottle, and her journal. There was also a ceramic pot at its side, as well as her shoes. Firstly, the fact that the ceramic pot was intact is a point to consider. This means it was placed on the ground, not thrown or discarded. This could mean someone strategically placed it in that spot to look as if she put it there herself. Or, of course, it could just be where she left her stuff herself. Secondly, her shoes. There's a great division of opinion about her shoes left at the bridge, the significance of them there. Some think it's a natural reflex to take off one's shoes if you're jumping into water, but seriously, I'm just not so sure that that would even be on one's mind in this situation. To me, the placement of the shoes is just so obviously staged. I can see how a bag could have been abandoned on a bridge, but shoes are what will purposely catch the attention of passers-by and obviously make someone stop dead in their tracks. It's instinctive. People will immediately think, wait, what? Who's taken off their shoes on this bridge? And what for other than to jump off? That thought process is exactly what was intended, at least in my opinion. It is so clearly a diversion. It makes me believe this was not done in a rush, but deliberately and tactically placed. There is something else as well that leads me to think this way. There is evidence supporting Tonee not being anything other than a 20-something-year-old going through the ups and downs of a young adult life. When her family were later looking through her journal, they found entries hinting that she felt down at times, but the passages weren't so strongly worded that it indicated thoughts of taking her own life. Her family have been open about her struggling with what life threw at her, but they also state quite clearly that she was a strong and vivacious young woman, not someone contemplating suicide. Her family have talked transparently about the hours before she vanished. She was having a bad day. Somewhere between the tea room and getting on the bus, she called Sydney, her older sister. I think there's only about a year's difference between them, and they were obviously close. Sydney was pretty short on the phone with Tonee. Siblings, right? If you have one, you know. But that's just part of life, in my opinion. You know, real life ain't an episode out of Little House on the Prairie. If I've understood correctly, at the time, Tonee had broken up with her on-again, off-again boyfriend, Jose, and was moving in with Sydney. Tonee was a bit down about the boyfriend situation, and when Sydney answered the phone that afternoon, she wasn't particularly receptive to her because she wasn't in the right mood. But, you know, we're all just living our lives. But devastatingly, Tonee got off the bus and she vanished out of sight. So it was a youngster riding his bike that came across her possessions that Monday night. Somewhere between the time Tonee got off the bus at 6:20 and 8:30 p.m. is when the young'un found her stuff. He only grabbed her bag though. I'm guessing he could manage to carry it on his back, but he left the ceramic pot and her shoes behind. He took it home to his father, who is a firefighter. They found Tonee's aunt's number on her phone and they returned the bag. The aunt then rang Sydney saying, "I've got your sister's phone." Well, it just turns out that Tonee repeatedly misplaced her phone, so it was only when Sydney went to collect the phone the following evening that it struck her as alarming when her sister's bag was handed over to her. She went straight to Tonee's house to look for her, and of course she couldn't find her. Looking through her phone, she found a text message from her boss asking her why she hadn't shown up to work that day. And this is when the alert went out that something untoward had clearly happened to her. A side story that gets brought up but didn't really aid much in the search for Tonee was a tip-off to Linton Street in the Hill District. This is an area over 4 miles west of the Dobra tea shop and 7 miles from where Tonee's bag and shoes were found. It's not really an area that Tonee would usually frequent. The search uncovered a body later identified as that of a 49-year-old Dana Jeffy, so not Tonee. It didn't provide any other leads to Tonee's whereabouts. And so here we are, over 3 years later. To me, it's the phone left behind that sets alarm bells off. Her shoes too, but because I think they were taken off her. Shoes don't come off to start a new life. Could she have gone to a friend's house? Might something have happened with someone she trusted? Did she go chill out in the park and something happened there? I've looked up the weather for that night in Pittsburgh and it says it got dark from 5 p.m. and it was approximately 5 degrees Celsius, which is 41 degrees Fahrenheit. So it was pretty cold. That makes me feel that there may have been people outside, but they wouldn't be hanging around much. They'd be on the move. I wonder if the darkness helped potential perpetrators get away with abducting her and quickly placing her things on the bridge without being noticed. It's cold and it's dark. I don't know. What do you think? Please leave your comments below the video. the more we talk about Tonee's case, the more likely someone will come out of the woodwork. And of course the investigation continues. I'll put the details of the numbers to contact in the description box as always. Thank you everyone so much for watching.